Do the Carlton.
Wait, why are we trying to go on LinkedIn Live? You see that?
Yes, because I started streaming to 4 different ones at once. And it's on the Fantasy Focused LinkedIn page that has 2 followers.
Okay.
So don't worry about it. We're okay. We made
with that.
Right now. And
I know.
I'm worried about LinkedIn.
All right.
Well,
Good morning.
Sorry. Go ahead.
This is a good Saturday start off. Welcome to the Fantasy Debate with Sam and Tate, brought to you by the Fantasy Focused podcast and the Original Hooters. I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Derek Tate. Derek, how are you this Saturday morning? I feel like we are both a little bit rough.
Well, if you have to turn off whether you're tuning in via YouTube or any other place that you can find our live broadcast, if you have to turn it off because of my hair, I hope you understand that I woke up about 45 minutes ago because my dog would strictly not allow me to sleep through the night last night. She was an absolute terror. Whenever the wind would blow open our storm door, she would start barking like crazy. So she was like the worst type of alarm clock that goes off. She was like my snooze button on most mornings, except at like 3 a.m.
That's fun. That's fun. I mean, I was planning on getting up really early and going to the gym, and then I went back to bed. But that's because I had way too many active dreams last night. I take melatonin at night to fall asleep, and it makes me have the trippiest dreams. So I feel like I just got back from a journey, but that's all right. We have a lot of fun stuff to talk football today and some nonsense as well. So let's just dive right in. We've got some really great games today. We got Niners versus the Vikings, and we got Titans versus Ravens today. Tomorrow we got Texans and Chiefs, and then Seahawks and Packers. Fun-filled weekend. Gotta love a divisional weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Is there a game in particular you're most looking forward to?
Showdown of 2 young quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. That's really the one that gets my juices flowing as a football fan, because last year we saw both of these quarterbacks finish the year on an off note. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, with that meltdown, and not really a meltdown, but they just weren't able to knock off the Patriots dynasty at home at Arrowhead. And then, of course, Deshaun Watson and company, the Houston Texans, laid an egg against the Indianapolis Colts. But it's interesting to see which quarterback, both of these quarterbacks drafted in the same class, which of them kind of builds to their legacy and builds some momentum heading into the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I'm really looking forward to watching Lamar Jackson play today against the Titans. I feel like the Titans are going to put up a tough one against the Ravens. I mean, you got to hope that, for a good game, not a blowout, because that's what we want in playoff matchups. But I think it's going to be a fun game. Also looking forward to Niners Vikings, although I do think that the Niners are going to slaughter them. So if we had to make our immediate picks going through these matchups, I would have to say I'm going to take the Niners, the Ravens. I kind of want to take the Texans again, just to, go for the upset there. And then it's got to be Seahawks for me in the last one.
I went with, when I recorded our OG podcast earlier this week, and also on a couple other ones, the Go Route and Taking Shots with Uncle Mike and Tater. If you haven't checked those out, check those out when you get a chance via however you digest your podcast. But point being, I made a prediction and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going with the home teams across the entire weekend, which I don't like doing, strictly because I want to be able to pick. I want to be edgy, Sam. I want to be able to kind of be the new kid on the block, make the sexy pick, call my shot like I did with the Tennessee Titans last week, knocking off the New England Patriots. But with all these games, I just don't see the home team losing for some reason. It's what my gut's telling me, so I'm going with my gut.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I can totally understand that. Well, one thing we can definitely assess and go through here today is any DFS players we love this weekend, because as players that love fantasy football, we don't want to stop, never stopping. So we will
season
continue.
Does not end right now, Sam.
It does not end.
It's just begun.
It has only just begun. We've got still so much fun to go through. So let's go ahead and pull up. We each made a DraftKings matchup and run through the players that we like. So if you want to go by position, I think we should just go ahead and start with the quarterback.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
For me, I had to pick Deshaun Watson this week. I just love how much volume he could get in this matchup. I'm not scared of the Kansas City Chiefs defense in any way for him, so I feel like he's going to have a really high floor for points.
So there's nothing wrong with going to Deshaun Watson and what I think is probably going to be the highest scoring game of the weekend between Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. But we look back, Deshaun Watson had a monster game in their Week 6 victory at Arrowhead against, when both of these quarterbacks were in the lineup. And Watson had 2 rushing touchdowns to go with, I believe it was 1 through the air. So he had a really nice fantasy day and proved that the Texans can win at Arrowhead. Yeah. But that being said, the Kansas City pass defense really has not been all that bad this season. And at Arrowhead in January is a completely different monster than Week 6. And not to mention in that same aforementioned previous tilt, Patrick Mahomes, who wasn't 100% healthy, still had himself a pretty damn nice game against this Houston secondary, throwing for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. Yeah. And I still think that if there's one place to attack this Texans defense, it's in the secondary. Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, I'm going to talk about this when we discuss our wide receivers that are on my lineup. Sure. But I'm going with Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback for the week. So, we're in the same game. It could, 31-24 was the first matchup. I'm not saying history repeats itself, but I do see this being a higher scoring game. And Mahomes, I still think, despite him not putting up the gaudy numbers that he did last year, I still think that he's the best young, pure quarterback that's, kind of taking the NFL by storm. And I think he makes a statement game at home to avenge last year's loss in the AFC Championship game.
Sure. I can see that. I like that we're going kind of head to head with our quarterbacks there. Just because I feel like we said, it's going to be a really high scoring game. So it's going to have, I think, the best value for DFS specifically this weekend as far as big points.
I straight get to kick your ass this week. Like we have the fantasy debate with Sam and Tate. It's the fantasy matchup with Sam versus Tate this week. Yes. And I get to wish straight ill upon your squad. So
how dare you?
Hold on. What is our wager for who has a better week?
Sure. Well, the last time we did a wager, we said that one of us had to wear a piece of clothing from the opposing person's favorite team. So
I hate that. I hate you for bringing that up.
You brought up, you started it. So
I agree to
you had to wear a wonderful women's Steelers tank, and it was awesome. I should repost that today. I definitely should, because I have it saved. Because that's what you do as a co-host. You save, blackmail for, your co-host.
I got my money back from NFLshop.com. Little did they know a grown-ass man threw that thing on and sent it back.
Some poor girl bought that and was like, this feels stretched out.
The worst was the back part. It was like the 2 straps for the tank top met in the, between my shoulder blades.
Yeah, that's how girl tank tops work. It tends to lift things for us, and other people tend to enjoy it. So that's how our clothes are built.
Yep.
You're welcome.
My t-shirts do that anyway. Just need.
It's because you shop at Baby Gap. Look at that. You need a size up.
Move on to running back.
Moving on. Wait. So we'll figure out. Maybe some people can suggest in the comments wagers that Derek and I can do. So whether or not it's it can be humiliating internet-wise. It could be, it'd be funny. Or could have to Postmate some food to one of another's work. That's always fun, too.
By the way, if you are joining us this morning and you are having cocktails at whatever time, today's drinking word, even though Sam is not going to be participating, is going to be DFS.
Yeah, it's a good drinking word.
Whenever we ever say those 3 letters consecutively, that's your cue to go ahead and have a sip of your cocktail. And if you're already starting early on a Saturday morning or early Saturday afternoon, then cheers to you.
Cheers to you. And there's a reason that I'm not drinking this morning. I am doing the intermittent fasting this year, and I'm starting it off strong. I haven't broken any days. So that just means I can't partake until later this afternoon, in which I will.
Well, you and Bucky's doing the TB12 diet, and he's completely cut out beer.
Wow.
apparently Bucks said he like the first time in, like a decade that he hasn't had a couple cold ones like on a daily basis, which to me that's mind blowing because like I kind of pick and choose my spots where I, enjoy an adult beverage. But the man he's just been putting up consistent numbers for a decade. I mean, that's GOAT status.
Yeah. He has a high floor is what you're saying on beers consumed in a day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So if you had to have your ride or die on people to consume beers in your day, you'd have to have Bucky at the top of your lineup.
Get him in your lineup.
Absolutely. But apparently not this month because he's on diet. Good for you.
Yeah.
Wishing you all the best of luck as you go through that and, power through. I believe in you. All right, let's roll through then onto the running back position. And this was really tough for me because, I mean, as we discussed, I play a little bit of DFS. I don't play it as often as I'd like just because usually in season I have so many leagues that I'm in. I'm not Ryan Levy level where I'm in 1,000 leagues, but I do have a lot that keep me busy. So it can be a bit much to me to have to balance out DFS as well. But for me, I was trying to pick guys that had that nice middle tier of volume. I'm not looking for the breakout players, for the booms here. I'm trying to save those for my wide receivers. So for me, I went Mark Ingram and I went Raheem Mostert, and particularly loved Mostert for his price. I think that you have so much volume there, and he's proven as the season ended to have that really consistent volume. I mean, over the last 4 games of the season, he averaged 58 yards and he averaged 11.25 carries. So I think for that consistency, and this game I see not being any different, I think he's going to be their guy. I like him especially for this position.
So although I have Mark Ingram in my lineup at a different point in my flex spot, so I'll get into him and kind of what my thought process was when it comes to that. But the 2 running backs that I have, I mean, when you think of garbage, think of Raheem. But the thing that scares me the most about any San Francisco 49ers running back, Sam, is that
I'm listening. I swear.
And Mostert has been the guy though recently, right? It seems like Shanahan has used him regardless of the fact that they paid Tevin Coleman a bunch of money this offseason, and Matt Breida had a breakout year in 2018. But Shanahan's going with the hot hand, which has been Raheem Mostert. So I don't see anything wrong with that. And Ingram, the only thing that scares me, even though he's in my lineup as well, is that calf injury. He's even questionable, but is expected to play today. And if he's good to go, I do expect him to have a good volume and should find the end zone once, if not twice today against the Titans. But with me, I'm going with Aaron Jones as my leading running back.
Gotcha.
So I know he's more top dollar at $7,400. He's the 3rd most expensive running back on the slate this weekend. But you look at the momentum that this man had heading into the postseason. And even you've noticed the entire season that the Green Bay Packers have completely changed their offensive philosophy and approach on a week-to-week basis under Matt LaFleur. 100 yards or more rushing for Aaron Jones 3 of the last 4 games of the season. And not to mention, he's been pretty damn consistent for the most part. I mean, he's laid a couple eggs, which Aaron Jones seems to do, because sometimes Jamal Williams has a bigger role than we expect. But we've seen like career highs across the board as far as receiving yards, receptions, and touchdowns for Aaron Jones as well. So that little PPR added bonus is because they like to get him involved in the screen game, which is kind of a staple of that Shanahan system. So for that reason, I've got Aaron Jones up there in Green Bay, which in that type of weather, you normally want to try to establish the running game. And then speaking of establishing the running game, the one thing that really stood out that the Houston Texans did back in week 6 at Arrowhead that really was successful was Carlos Hyde. And Carlos Hyde, say what you will, he's not going to give you a ton of production as far as catching the ball out of the backfield. But this man had 26 carries for $116 and found the end zone in week 6. And I feel as if there's one glaring weakness for that Kansas City defense, it's you can run the football at them. So for that reason, Hyde, who has only had 1 game in the last 10 games where he's had fewer than 10 carries at $5,000, that salary for him, I love the requisite touches, as Bucky would say, for that price point.
Yeah, and Carlos Hyde is at 5,000, just to confirm that. I mean, I get that, and we're splitting hairs, I think, as far as value at value and volume for running back here, and I think that's the safest bet, especially at this position. It's interesting you went Aaron Jones, because I originally went Aaron Jones, and then I specifically took him out for a later reason.
Jedi mind trick.
Sure. No, I had my reason. I had a reason that you also brought up, and we can even go into now for if you want to talk flex, unless you want to switch straight to
let's go to flex. I mean, I already have Mark Ingram, and I already kind of said my bit. So who's your flex option?
My flex option was Jamal Williams for that same reason. I'm counting on some vultures today. Okay. I think that when the Packers have the running game going smooth and they've got Aaron Jones working, they immediately go for the vulture and they immediately start plugging in Williams if the running game is being successful. So I think that I'm going to hope for those vulturing points from him in that flex position, and it's at a better value, I think.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going Jamal Williams, and especially when you're playing in DFS. Oh, I'll have to grab my beverage in here in a second. But when you're playing DraftKings,
DFS.
No, stop saying it. But when you're playing in these contests, going with the off or the backup running back in a lot of cases actually can pay dividends because not as many folks are starting them, so you are gaining points when opposing teams aren't. Yeah. So, I mean, Williams, though, the only thing that kind of makes me a little bit nervous about I considered Williams, he hasn't scored a rushing touchdown since week 8. So that's the only thing that kind of, lent me to stay away from him. I went with the guy who's been the lead dog for the most part throughout most of the season.
Hey, I mean, I am no bigger, fan of Aaron Jones than any other person. He won me my championship this year in my dynasty league. So I plan on giving a big portion of, my winnings to whatever foundation is his foundation, and maybe like a basket of mini muffins just because I appreciate him so much.
Mini muffins.
Yeah. Everybody loves mini muffins.
Oh, well, yeah, they're okay. I mean, all right, let's move on. Wide receiver. Wide receiver. Who do you got so we got to pick 3 wide receivers. Who do you got?
3 wide receivers. I went Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, and Deebo Samuel for my receivers. So I went with the big money on Tyreek Hill just because I love, obviously that connection with Mahomes, and like we said, high scoring game there. So rather than banking on the volume from Mahomes in this week, I went with the volume for Hill. And then I went AJ Brown, so consistent for the Titans. I feel like that's a good high floor for me as well. And Deebo Samuel, I liked a lot. I think that the Niners are going to be exploiting the Vikings in many different facets. And I think in the passing game is not going to be forgotten. So I think that he's a really great pick as well.
So it's interesting that you went with those 3 receivers because I've got 2 of those 3. So I've got Tyreek Hill. No, but here's the strategy always when it comes to receivers. I like to pair a receiver with my quarterback. Sure. So I've got Patrick Mahomes as my guy. So naturally, I want the guy that's probably going to be catching the most passes and scoring the most touchdowns for the quarterback that I selected. And that guy back in week 6 was Tyreek Hill. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I don't think that there's a corner on the in the secondary for the Houston Texans that can really slow down Tyreek Hill. So for that reason, I think that he's going to be a problem all game long and would not be shocked if he pops a big one at some point. But Deebo, on the other hand, I love the Deebo pick clearly because he's in my lineup, but really what we've seen his role in this offense really not evolve, but like grow, expand. Yes, falafel.
Blossom, not falafel. I'm hungry, but I'm not that hungry.
I get stuck. I just need to be like word, and then you just come up with whatever I'm thinking of trying.
Oh, it's like in The Office when Michael Scott goes line.
Yep, exactly. Line. Yeah, I need to start doing that because oftentimes I'll talk myself into a circle.
You're welcome.
But thank you. But Deebo Samuel, each of the last 4 weeks, he's had at least 1 or 2 carries. And I'm not banking on him having 5 or 6 carries or something like that, but it shows that Kyle Shanahan wants to make sure that he gets this man the football one way or the other. And he's been able to not only beat you occasionally on the ground with 2 rushing touchdowns the last 2 weeks of the regular season for Deebo, but also I've seen him have at least 3 or more targets in each of the last 4 games. So, I mean, I've seen his role expand in both the passing game and them just finding creative ways to get the football in his hands.
Definitely. I mean, I think that also just thinking about Deebo Samuel for next season, I think that his overall draft position is obviously going to be shooting up the board, if I could put it any other way.
He's probably going to be one of those second-year wide receivers a la this past season, like Christian Kirk, that showed you enough flashes to warrant like a mid-round selection for like draft day in redraft formats. But the one guy that I didn't talk about yet.
Yeah, the one that apparently doesn't match our lineups.
Yes. Well, you went with the bad AJ Brown. Yeah, no, I love AJ Brown. You know that, but he is exponentially more expensive than Corey Davis. And Davis got blanked last week at New England, but let's be fair. The Titans only threw for 72 yards on the day. That's because the New England Patriots have struggled to put up points all season long. I don't see the Ravens struggling to put up points in this game. And I see that likely the Titans, who are going to try to just jam the ball down the throat of the Baltimore Ravens early on, try to play time possession and keep the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands. Once the Ravens put up some scores and the Titans need to air it out to try to keep up, I expect A.J. Brown and Corey Davis to eat a little bit against this secondary. Now, granted, they do have very good cover corners for the Baltimore Ravens and Marcus Peters, Jimmy Smith, and Marlon Humphreys, but Corey Davis should still get his, and he's exponentially cheaper than A.J. Brown. So for that reason, I went ahead with Corey Davis at $3,700.
I get that. I mean, I feel like, for my lineup, I definitely went with saving money on the flex with Jamal Williams, and I see that where you put your lesser one. It makes sense. I'm hoping that, I agree. I'm hoping for a much higher scoring game. I'm hoping for more yards all over the field for the Titans. So I understand that pick. I think it's a good pick. Now, guys, if you have any other questions for your DFS, please don't forget to jump in the comments and give us a shout out. We will definitely be trying to answer all your questions today. Big shout out to Nick Diaz. What's poppin'? Good to see you in the comments as always. And Nick Diaz asks, will the 49ers be lethargic today? I do not think they're going to be lethargic today. I think they're going to come out strong today. They've got a lot to prove and finish it out strong. So I think it's going to be a really good day for the Niners. How about you?
I think the 49ers have too much talent up front defensively. Last week we saw the Minnesota Vikings absolutely just cram the ball down the Saints' throat. They came out, punched them right in the mouth, and made life a hell of a lot easier on Kirk Cousins on the road. But you're not going to be given that type of gift this week in San Francisco against that unit up front. I mean, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas, Nick Bosa, they are going to come out to play. And even Quan Alexander looks like he's going to be a go this week, who had like tore his pectoral muscle similar to like JJ Watt, and looks like he's going to give it a go this week. So, I mean, the 49ers defense, they're already a problem to deal with up front, but also they're going to be able to put the heat on Kirk Cousins. So for me, I do think the 49ers defense shows up. I just don't know what to expect from Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what Nick brings up. There's no way Cousins wins versus Jimmy G's quarterback play. I mean, I think of the two, and again, speaking back to the defense at hand, I don't see Cousins being able to put up enough to, bring the Vikings over the hump and, defeat the Niners in that way. I just don't see it happening.
Although I got to give Kirk Cousins mad props, because I sat here and said this guy, comes up small in big games last week heading into the matchup against the Saints. I thought there was no shot in hell that the Vikings went into New Orleans and won that football.
Yeah, no, we both had the Saints last week. And if I should pull up who we pulled last week, I know that there was a couple surprises. Hey, my Texans pick worked out.
It did. Deshaun Watson went full Superman to have to get by the Buffalo Bills. Bills gave that game away. They were up 16-0.
They did.
Stop dancing.
God, it was so brutal. It was like, guys, you were playing really well. What are you doing?
We both picked the Titans, though. We both picked the Titans.
We both picked the Titans, yeah.
So that worked. I mean, that was even we really had a hell of a lot of good football for Wild Card Weekend. It was great.
Oh my gosh, it was a fun weekend.
Every single game. Really, the last one was the stinker of the bunch because Carson Wentz got knocked out in the first quarter with a little bit of a cheap hit from Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, which, wicked bummer there. But anyways, yeah, great. It was a great last weekend of football. This weekend is going to be no different. I feel like it's going to still be a fun day. I mean, like I said,
it's going to be a fun day.
It's going to be a really fun day. I'm really looking forward to it too. With this whole intermittent fasting thing, my window opens right when the game starts. Got to get me some nachos in hand.
First thing you need before nachos, though, is you need to tell us who your tight end is.
Yeah.
Full circle. We've come full circle here on this DFS lineup.
Sure. I can't forget my tight end, which is Jacob Hollister. I think that when you go through, for me, when I'm looking through the tight ends available and at their prices, I'm just trying to find someone, that has that good even keel of a floor. And I feel like he's such a consistent target for Russell Wilson that I'm going to lean that way. I didn't have enough money when I was going through this to end up back at Mark Andrews, but I also love that pick. And I wasn't going to overspend for Kelsey or Kittle. So for me, I was going for the safe pick with Hollister as a budgetary choice.
Well, it's okay if you want to go budgetary choice because I'm actually going with the same exact tight end just because of how I filled out the rest of my lineup. I did. Well, no, I'm just being real. But if there was a tight end that I was willing to spend top dollar for this week, it's hey diddle diddle George Kittle up the middle because Kittle's been, ever since he came back from that injury that he had in the middle of the season, I think he was dealing with like an ankle and a knee injury, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Dude's been beasting as far as like a weekly floor. At least 6 or more or 5 or more receptions the last 4 weeks of the season with at least 60 or more receiving yards, and he had 2 scores to go along with it. So Kittle, though, I think Kittle's the best tight end in the NFL. No disrespect to Travis Kelce or Zach Ertz.
No, for sure. I mean,
I think Kittle's the best.
He's been a monster, so I totally understand that pick.
But particular, I mean, $6,200 at the tight end spot. I mean, he could be worth every penny. But I see the Vikings trying to force, and Mike Zimmer and company, trying to force Jimmy Garoppolo to go elsewhere. I personally want to take George Kittle out of that passing attack and make either Emmanuel Sanders or Deebo Samuel on the outside beat me.
Yeah, no, I totally get that for sure. Nick Diaz actually has another question for us. Are the Packers pretenders or real contenders for a ring? I like that.
I have no damn idea because this is the most confusing 13-3 team that I can remember. Particularly, like, doesn't it every time like we saw the Green Bay Packers, it felt like remember when they played against the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football, right? They got absolutely embarrassed. They didn't even look like they were in the same weight class as the 49ers. I don't think that I think that they'll win this week because the Seahawks are banged up. And I don't know. Aaron Rodgers at home in Lambeau Field. I think they get at least one win. Rodgers has at least one game where he shines out this postseason, but I think they were going to run into the 49ers in the next round, and we saw what happened when they had to try to protect Aaron Rodgers against that front seven, and it was a disaster. So I don't think – and even if they do get to the Super Bowl, I don't see it, though. I mean, I don't see it. I don't know about you.
No, I agree. I mean, if they're going to win one, it's going to be against the Seahawks. Like you said, they're very banged up, and – it's Rodgers. He's able to pull a rabbit out of a hat when he really needs to. So I think if he's going to do it, it's going to be tomorrow. But I'm not sure that they have the legs under them to really get the full, to get the Super Bowl ring. So if they end up in the Super Bowl, I'll be surprised. But I don't see them finishing it out fully.
I don't like doubting Aaron Rodgers though. That's not that doesn't make me feel comfortable when I'm trying to bet against that guy.
No, you never feel good betting against Aaron Rodgers, and especially, as soon as you start to do that, that's when he takes off and he does well. And you know what, Nick, we really appreciate you. He said like, share, and I just subscribed. So appreciate you there. Thank you for that. Guys, absolutely. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss an episode of the Fantasy Debate, but you also don't miss out on any of the shows on the Fantasy Focus channel because they're all super fun And I'm not maybe a little bit biased because I get to be a part of this team, but I think they're all fun.
Yeah, and we're going to start doing draft player profiles for incoming rookies. That's my baby. That's the one I get. I
bread and butter.
Oh, it's my bread and butter. But I'm gonna be stuck in the lab, late hours, sitting there watching game film, trying to come up with funny puns for all the players' nicknames and stuff like that. It's gonna be. How do you come up with a pun for Tua Tagovailoa? Did you learn how to say it last week? Have you?
Tua Tagovailoa.
Not bad.
Tagovailoa. For me, it was the last part that was difficult. The viola was difficult because I kept wanting to put the L other places. A little bit dyslexic.
Now, there's also folks that say Tagovailoa. There's an I in there, so I'd like to throw that vi, like Tagovailoa. Like, I don't know. I've just, practiced way too long in the dark, practicing saying his name. It's just, that doesn't sound right. But anyway.
Your fiance is a very, very special woman to have the patience for you sometimes.
Very, very patient woman, yes. But
Derek, go to sleep. I don't care if you can say it.
I actually had a joke, but I'll pass on it. But anyway, so we've got ourselves now. So we've got our lineups real quick, just to go ahead and run them down real quick. For your boy Tater, I've got Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Jones, Carlos Hyde, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Corey Davis, Jacob Hollister, Mark Ingram at the flex. And then for defense, we have not discussed defense yet, but I am picking the Packers defense. I do think it's going to be tough for Russell Wilson. Again, banged up unit on both sides of the football for the Seattle Seahawks. I think that if there's a game that potentially could be a blowout for me, I know I love Russell Wilson, and he's a natural born leader, a winner, and they've been in like one-score games all season long. But I just struggle to see how they're going to put up points consistently without the service. It's Marshawn Lynch is a great story.
Sure.
He's off the couch. They signed him off the couch, and they've got Travis Homer, who, did anybody know who Travis Homer was? No disrespect. He's a professional athlete, but he was on the practice squad for the majority of this season, and he's done a nice job filling in. But I just don't see the Seahawks having the horses. They've been just ravaged by injuries for the majority of the season. I just don't think, they've had a great season, but I just don't see them having enough to win in Green Bay.
No, I agree with you there. So I'm going to run through my list, and you're going to love my defense's pick as well. So I got Deshaun Watson, Mark Ingram, Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Jacob Hollister, Jamal Williams, and I went with the Packers defense as well for all the same reasons. I was going through these defenses, and honestly, I wanted to pick the one that I felt had the best chance to upset the opposing quarterback, and I believe it's the Packers against the Seahawks. The Packers defense has shown quite a few bright spots throughout the season of being able to have those big stands. And I think that with a kind of limping Seahawks team, that's going to be the good pick for DFS. So real quick, just to jump into the comments though, we've got a couple guys, our regular BN Drydosen has joined us. Thank you for joining us this morning. And he had to ask us, will guys answer 2020 fantasy questions? We will. So if you guys have any 2020 questions going into next season, please throw them in the comments or tweet at us at dtater4 for Derek and at Samantha R. Holt for my Twitter. And we will make sure that we get to all of those for our next episode if we don't get to them today. So please go ahead and at us with all of your next season questions for sure.
It's never too soon, too. And Nick Diaz also bringing up the over-under for the 49ers-Vikings game, and it's at 45. So I'll ask you real quick, 49ers-Vikings total score, do you got over-under 45 points?
I think I'm going to take the under.
Okay.
Are you going to take the over?
We saw last week on the road the Vikings with the formula to be able to win a low-scoring game, but I just think that Kyle Shanahan is going to go ahead and find ways to put up points, and I think the Vikings show up. I think this is a competitive game. I don't think this is a blowout by any stretch, but I actually think it's going to be over. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring than people think, even though the 49ers defense has started off great this season. They kind of came back as far as allowing points in that secondary. So for that reason, I will go ahead and say it's going to be the over.
Gotcha.
By the way, if any of y'all you were mentioning 2020. I don't think it's ever too early to start talking about next season in fantasy football. But one thing that we did bring up is we're actually going to be starting a $100 dynasty league, a startup dynasty league, which Sam's going to be in, I'm going to be in, Bucky's going to be in, Levy's going to be in. If you want to go ahead and join us, but look, this is dynasty. This isn't Mickey Mouse shit. This is long term. You draft a shit ass squad, you're stuck with them. If you are
be in it for the long haul,
right? If you are interested, we are looking for a couple more owners. So just let us know. Shoot, hit us up on the social medias, and we'll try to shoot you the details about how to get down on that dynasty league.
Yep, absolutely. And being also asking, where is Bucky when you need him with the weather report? I know, it's so helpful. I mean, I think that Bucky needs to post maybe he should change his Instagram handle to the weather report with Bucks, and then people can just tune in every day for the weather report, because I find it so helpful.
If Bucky wants to fly up to Cadillac, Michigan, we will get him dressed up, full suit, and put him in front of a green screen and just let him talk about whatever questions you guys need for a weather report. I personally think that he should quit his job, go to meteorology. Word line. Meteorology school, so he can go ahead and actually do that professionally, because his weather reports are absolutely electric.
I mean, the only thing that I think competes with how electric his weather reports are would have to be his cooking episodes, which I think need to come back in this off season, because they're just so good. They're so tasty. As you're watching it, you're like, I want to have that food. Sounds good. Awesome.
I mean, now that he's on the TB12 diet.
Yeah, maybe he can do some TB12 recipes.
I want to see, though. I mean, he was kind of talking about the TB12 diet, and I want to see, if he's got a lot more energy now when he's, cooking some of those meals. So anything Bucky does, I'm willing to watch. The guy is entertainment gold.
Yeah, he's hilarious. We'll have to get him to join us one of these mornings. But so guys, if you have any other DFS questions, please hit us up again on all the forms of social media. Derek is on all things at dtater4. On Twitter, I am at Samantha R. Holt, and on Instagram at Sam_awesome. So please hit us up. And thanks for tuning in for another off-season episode of the Fantasy Debate. Derek, please go ahead and sign us out.
Well, I was actually wondering if we had a topic for the final debate, but I mean, it's okay. We can go ahead and sign off. Look, we are going down the home stretch of the 2020 or 2019 NFL season, but we are going to be staying with you on the Fantasy Debate with Sam and Tate here on Fantasy Focus via the YouTube channel and everywhere else that our podcast goes. Namely, you can find it on iHeartRadio as of 2019. So, and we renewed our partnership with Hooters. That is very exciting here over at Fantasy Focus. So we can appreciate our partners and sponsorship from the original Hooters. So, of course, if you're ever in the area and need somewhere to watch some football and get some wingy, Derek want wingy, go ahead and swing by. But outside of that, until next time, later, says a tater.
Bye, guys.